Welcome to the Cyber 60 podcast from Lightspeed, where we sit down with founders, CEOs, and visionaries building the next era of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Lightspeed partner Guru Chahal. Today I'm speaking with Yotam Segev, founder and CEO of Cyera. At 32, Yotam has built an incredible data security platform, which is on track to surpass 100 million in ARR with a valuation of over $6 billion. That's not even the most impressive part. He's done all of this in less than 4 years. And he's done this while fostering a culture that's very, very special. We call it Cyera Kind. In our conversation, we'll dive into data security.
As security professionals, they want to discover the unknown unknowns. They want our platform, our product, to be able to show them the data that they have out there and they should be concerned about that they might not even know about.
We learn more about agentic AI as an emerging cybersecurity threat.
Our business had legs before AI, but with AI, it's got wings. It's not that the problems are new. A lot of the problems are the same problems we had before. They're just much, much, much worse. They're moving at a completely different speed, and the risk is potentially 100 times greater than it was.
We'll talk about the launch of Cyera Research Labs arm and how Yotam leads one of the fastest growing companies in cybersecurity.
The people that succeed and do well in our company are people that have a relatively strong introspective capability. They see themselves. They don't think that because they've accomplished things in life or because they've succeeded, they have it all figured out. I always tell the employees in the onboarding call that we take the business very seriously, but not ourselves.
Yotam, thank you for joining us. I always like to start from the start. There must have been a spark, something that made you go, you know what, I'm going to go build a company. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not a rational decision. It's certainly not objective. What made you do it?
I think for me, the real catalyst was my co-founder, was my partner. We served together for over a decade in the Israeli military and had the privilege of working side by side on some fascinating and challenging projects. And I just loved working with him. He was supposed to fly to the States to do the Pacific Crest Trail after he finished his service. And COVID hit and the trail closed. And the day that he got the notice that the trail isn't opening that year and is stuck, he called me and told me, Yotam, quit. We're starting. Let's build a company. And you don't want to walk outside in the civilian world a little bit, experience the industry. It's like, no, let's start by building a company and we learn. Maybe it won't be the best company, but let's get going. We learn while we do.
I think on any metric, you've far surpassed any goal I'm sure you might have had initially. So you get together with him. You're thinking through what space you want to build in. And you've shared in our conversations before that Cyera was born out of this frustration that he had with traditional perimeter-based data security. How did you land on that idea and in that zip code?
Yeah. So I think for us coming into Cyera, into this project, we came with a mentality that we don't know. That was our mentality, and to a large regard, it's still our mentality today. We don't know, but we're very fortunate because there's somebody that does know. That's the customers. They know what's broken. They know what's important. They know why the existing things aren't working. They might not know what the solution looks like, but they can guide you as an enterprise software company at a level, both at the top strategy vision, what the company needs to be, all the way down to the minutia and details of, what the UI looks like and what the workflows should be like and how to best deploy and implement at scale with the largest organizations in the world. And I think we took that mentality and brought it into our, let's call it initial product market fit journey. We also worked on that very closely with CyberStarts, which were seed investors on what they called the Sunrise process. And that process really allowed us to not only articulate the problem, the challenge that we were trying to solve for customers very precisely. And I always say that, 1 degree to the left, 1 degree to the right, over time, it accumulates, and you end up much further from what the customers wanted than where you are. So really getting it precise, understanding the pain, the problem, the challenge the customers were experiencing. When you think about technology and you think about software, you think about the buying patterns and the buying trends of customers. If you're a CISO, you can't just go to the CFO and says, I need another few $1 million to invest in data security. CFO was like, why today? Why not yesterday? Why did you do it for the last 4 years? You've been the CISO at this company. What's changed? What's happening? So you have to think about what's happening, what's changing, what's moving in the customer's world.
Yeah.
What new challenges is that creating for them? And how can you build into those new challenges without forsaking the old challenges? Because it doesn't mean that next-gen something isn't needed. It might be needed, but the way to sell it and the way to position it to the customers is not as the next-gen something that wasn't that great. It's leaning into the new problems, new challenges that are coming out in the world, but then also starting to take care of those older use cases that have never really been solved at the level that the customers needed.
Right. I mean, data has always been the crown jewel for customers. And I remember when you started the company, there was a long history of data discovery tools that would help you figure out where your data is, so on. And yet you heard something in those customer interviews that made the light bulb go off. You're like, I can solve this and I can solve this better. Was there a particular moment or something specific you heard, some frustration with the existing tools that made you go, this is it?
Absolutely. I think there were several aspects that really clicked for us. I think the first aspect was the existence of tools does not mean that there's a solution. Right? There's many tools in the world. That doesn't mean you can actually solve something. I have a kayak. The kayak fell off its holder and it got cracked. Now you can buy the tools to mend the kayak at home. Doesn't mean you can actually do it. I tried. doesn't work that well.
I'm curious how you found out, but that's probably a story for another
having
day.
The existence of tools doesn't mean that the customers can actually get to a solution. And we spoke to customers, and what we heard from them is, look, we're in this journey for several years with these tools. We've invested millions of dollars. We've put tens of people on the project. It's really important to us, that important to us. But the results we're managing to get are unsatisfactory. We're not managing to scale these deployments across our environments. We're not managing to deliver the outcomes we set out to achieve. And we actually love that, because I always joke that if the problem is so important that the customers were willing to buy and invest time and energy in tools that didn't solve the problem, what would happen if you actually gave them something that does solve the problem, right? Like, how thrilled would they be if you were able to do that? And I think for us, we knew that our forte as a team is the technological leg.
Yeah.
We weren't product experts. We weren't go-to-market experts at all, but we knew that we can build technology and we can build technology well. We knew how to hire the right people to build great technology. And we felt like if there's a problem that is super important to the customers, but is challenging technologically to solve, that should be our sweet spot.
Yeah.
Whenever there were ideas for something that was a little easier technologically to solve, Tamar would say, Tamar's my co-founder, our CTO, would say, no, Yotam, that's not for us. Other teams can do easy things. We're a team that should do hard things, right? Like, that's where we excel. That's where we're going to have a differentiator in the market.
Right. Knowing him, I can totally see him say that. It's like, this is not worth doing. I 100% agree with you. When we were getting to know you and we did all those customer calls, the one thing that stood out every single time was the quality of data discovery. That initial problem you started with, you nailed it. How did you push the frontier of data discovery? What was it that Cyera in those early days was doing that was just so remarkable that it led to this explosive growth coming out of the gate?
So I think from a technology standpoint, there were two things that we really invested in significantly that changed the experience the customers were getting. And together, it changed the experience the customers were getting completely. The first one was how you deploy. Right? Deployment in the enterprise is a huge challenge. Right? These big enterprises buy security tools, infrastructure tools. They buy all sorts of things, but they're so challenged to deploy them and scale them across their truly vast IT ecosystems. And the traditional method for scanning for data was over network-based connectors that essentially required to connect into one piece of infrastructure at a time, a data store, a database, a bucket, one by one over the network. And that doesn't scale well.
Right.
It doesn't scale well for enterprises that have hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of different data stores. The network footprint is a challenge. The performance impact is a challenge. And we were able to leverage the cloud migration, which was a big why now for these organizations at the time. We're talking about 4 years ago. Everybody was focused on moving to the cloud. Where are we in our cloud migration? So we were able to tie and latch onto that change and really deliver a completely different experience in the cloud that was fully agentless, just based over API connectivity to the underlying cloud provider. And from that single point of connection to the underlying cloud provider API, we could open up everything they had in the cloud, be it native, non-native, structured, unstructured data stores, and truly light up their cloud and show them all the data that they have out there, just over that single piece of integration. So the architecture, the cloud native architecture was a huge differentiator and really set us up in a completely, to be able to deliver a completely different experience. That was coupled with an AI native data classification engine. When you think about the way data classification was done historically, if you go all the way back, Microsoft essentially propagated this mentality that people, employees in these enterprises, will manually tag their data. Mm-hmm. Right? Like if you create a document in a big enterprise in corporate America, you're supposed to apply a sensitivity label to that document that says, is it confidential, restricted, or public? That was the original mechanism. Well, obviously, self-attestation is not such a reliable indicator of sensitivity, and this had extreme downstream effects because every part of the data security program that was built on top of that, let's call it a partially reliable classification, was questionable and very noisy. And that created a very bad experience for customers because the foundation wasn't right. Then came along the data scanning tools. But these data scanning tools were the type of enterprise software that was built 20 years ago. We'll give you an engine, but you'll have to tinker with the engine, play around with the engine, manage the engine. In that sense, it was the customers had to build their own classifiers in these tools. They had to build regex patterns and maintain them and fine-tune them. A whole process that required engineering that is non-trivial at all. And if you manage to find an engineer that's able to do it, good luck retaining him for more than 6 months. And so the challenge of actually classifying the data with these engines was immense. And we talked to the customers and we heard that challenge from them. And we also heard that as security professionals, they want to discover the unknown unknowns. They want our platform, our product, to be able to show them the data that they have out there and they should be concerned about that they might not even know about. Just this last 24 hours, I was meeting with a big technology company, and their core use case and core excitement about Cyera is in Cyera's ability to inform the security team about new data types that have become prevalent in the company because the company itself is an innovative company. They create new IP all the time. Wow. How would the security team know about this IP? So today, when they have to go and ask the business, they're saying we're 12 months behind the business.
Right.
In the data that we know we should protect. But that those 12 months are exactly the most critical point of innovation. When you think about AI today, when you think about semiconductors, when you think about the edge that you can actually maintain in technology, nobody has decades of edge on the competitors today. It's 12 months, it's 6 months that separates you from the competitors, from the commodity. And that is exactly what these teams are trying to protect. And Cyera not only is able to find that data, it's able to inform them about data that they didn't even know to look for. Right. And that was a completely different paradigm for the customers, a fully automated data classification engine that learns the customer's unique data types automatically and is able to raise them up in a way that the customers can consume and understand. And essentially the combination of these two product understandings and technologies allowed us to just scale across the cloud in a massive, massive way, so fast, so accurate, and so much more contextualized than anything that existed before, and really earned us our first successes in the market and our first opportunities to partner with some amazing companies that needed that capability and were willing to take a chance on us when we were a very small company without the reputation and presence we have today.
Right. I love that story. Just this ability, Cyera's ability to not just find that data, but actually classify it automatically and in some sense raise the IQ for the entire security team. I mean, that's gold. And then being able to package that in a way that you can frictionlessly deploy it and try it out without the security team having to go out and ask for permissions from the data team and the network team and the cloud team and 5 other teams. I think that combination is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
But having said all of that, it still doesn't make it easy. Data doesn't sit still. It's always on the move. It's copied, synced, and cached, and all of the other fun stuff that happens with data. How do you secure something that is always in motion? After you've already mastered this first, let me discover it, let me classify it, but now it's moving. What does Cyera do that is so unique for this data in motion?
Yeah. So I think that today when we look at our offering, we look at what we're bringing into the market, we're thinking about it in terms of a holistic data security platform. And if you think about data security for our customers, for the enterprise, it's never actually been done. There was some data security done in the proxy, and some data security done in the endpoint, and some in the email. But you'll rarely find an enterprise that actually has a data security program that is holistic, where they're able to identify the crown jewels across the enterprise. They're able to keep that up to date and up to the business, and potentially without the 12-month lag, because those 12 months can be the end of it, and is able to protect that data at rest, in use, and in motion. And that is the framework for our holistic data security platform. I think Cyera is moving very rapidly to be able to fill that need for customers, probably faster than the customers can actually consume and operationalize this technology. Even though I just came from a meeting with one of our largest customers that was sharing how the operationalization is going for them. I was astounded at the pace of innovation and how much they've managed to achieve just in the last few months since I checked in on them last.
Yeah.
But this holistic data security platform is going to be the way that enterprises are protecting their data in the age of cloud and AI.
Yeah.
And that is our mission, to really be able to monitor and protect data in all of its life cycle, in all the places it exists, in all of its forms, as it's moving, as it's changing, as it's being used, as it's being put into LLMs and being queried out of LLMs.
Right.
So those are the challenges that our customers are dealing, and we're absolutely in a platform approach to be able to answer that across the entire enterprise stack.
Right. And how is, since you mentioned LLMs, just talk a little bit about how AI is having an impact on the data security market. I know you've earlier positioned agentic AI as potentially, one of the largest opportunities, but also threats from a cybersecurity perspective in years. Share with us a little bit more about how are you thinking about AI and agents? How is Cyera thinking about it? What are you hearing from customers? It'd be amazing to get an update on that.
So when I think about our business, I think our business had legs before AI, but with AI, it's got wings. Right? It's not that the problems are new. A lot of the problems are the same problems we had before. They're just much, much, much worse. They're moving at a completely different speed, and the risk is potentially 100 times greater than it was when we were living in the human world, and now we're living in the machine world, and things are moving at AI speed. And the lack of foundations, right? Like the missing foundations of data security are truly a hindrance for these enterprises to adopt AI securely and responsibly. I'm hearing from customers every day, how are we supposed to adopt AI and do it in a controlled manner when we don't even know what data we have and what data we're feeding into it? Like we're absolutely, on the precipice of disaster with this. And that's the challenge that is driving such urgency from the enterprise today. every enterprise realizes they want to be at the front of AI. They want to win with AI, but at the same time, these are extremely profitable and successful businesses. And they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot in the process. That's exactly where Cyera comes in as an enabler, as a way to say yes to AI, as a way to open up the guardrails and to open up the floodgates, to enable the enterprise to bring AI in, but to do it with the right monitoring and the right accountability, to be able to put the right controls and preventative measures in, to make sure that AI is the best thing that happened to the organization and not the worst. I mean, I think that, the challenge that we're seeing with agentic is incredible. It's not truly in the market yet today, but every organization is thinking about it and how it's going to alter their workforce and alter the way they operate their business.
Yeah.
And when we think about it, it's the need to be able to profile a user. That user can be a human user, can be a non-human user, can be an agent. The need to be able to profile a user and all of its actions within the enterprise ecosystem and outside of the enterprise ecosystem, and then be able to match that or compare that to a blueprint of what is the expected behavior, what is a reasonable behavior for this agent considering its mission. That is going to be the core to enable agentic usage in the enterprise.
Right.
And depending on the type of company and the type of business they're in, it sets a bar of, how delayed is their adoption going to be to the actual availability of this technology.
Right.
And a lot of what I'm hearing from CTOs, CIOs, and CISOs is that they want to protect the organization from the missed opportunity cost. They don't want to be in a position where there's opportunity to do such amazing things from a business perspective in the organization, but they can't do it because they don't have the right foundations to do it securely.
Yeah. And what's interesting is you're using AI to help them adopt AI. As you mentioned earlier, core to Cyera is the utilization of amazing AI technology to classify data actively, proactively, actually. But now I just heard you mention using AI also in threat detection, in baselining behavior, not just mine, but for AI agents that might be running across the enterprise. Talk to us a little bit more about that. Looks like it's a very core thesis for us at Cyera that we want to use AI to automate proactively as much of data security and behavior analysis, etc., as possible. Is that where you're taking the company?
Yeah, so maybe I'll give a funny metaphor, right? Yeah. But you remember for babies, I happen to have one at home, so I'm aware there's this game with the square hole and the triangle hole and the circle hole and the different shapes, and the baby is supposed to put the right shape in the right hole. Right? Essentially, that's kind of teaching a baby a policy. Right? Triangles fit in triangle holes and squares do not fit in triangle holes, right? If you will. The way we did security policy throughout history has been extremely explicit, very similar to this baby toy, right? Like we had to say, this specific type of action cannot happen, right? Squares cannot go into triangle holes, right? But when you think about this same policy, this same concept can be extrapolated very simply, right? Shapes, objects should only go to a hole that matches their shape, right? Like we just turned this policy from having to do with 3 specific objects into being applicable to every object in every shape, right? And obviously there's many. I think that AI is going to allow us to move our security policy from a very explicit, hard-coded, specific policy, where we're saying something like a square cannot go into a triangle hole, into a much more, let's call it contextualized policy, which is saying a shape, an object should only go into a hole that matches its shape. Right? And that allows for much more diverse behaviors to occur without being blocked, without being intervened with, as long as they keep to the mission, right? Like they keep to the essence of the policy. We never had an essence of the policy in cyber controls. It was always very, very hard-coded controls. So I think that AI is truly transformational for cybersecurity at many levels, but also in the way that policy is implemented, that controls are implemented. It will be a very different world with AI reasoning, even just at the basic level of that example, right? Like not having to call out a specific behavior, but being able to extrapolate it and generalize it into specific positive and negative behaviors that should be prevented.
Yeah, I really like that example. I'm going to borrow that too. Because again, it highlights very, very cleanly how we're actually going to get more secure by adopting AI, because you're defining policies that make sense. Instead of the minutia of 200 rules where an expert has to sit and figure out, and then the expert is gone and you have no idea why that rule exists.
Exactly.
This is why, firewall policies are tens of thousands
in conversations
long.
with customers, they're asking us, are you going to be able to update the policy in real time?
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to explain to them is, I'm not sure that we're going to need to update the policy in real time. Maybe the policy will be built in such a way that it extrapolates into scenarios that have yet to be discovered. Let's say data that is new, or new behaviors that people are doing. We're not necessarily going to have to update the policy. We might be able to build a policy that is adaptive and contextualized and is able to catch these instances, approve them or disapprove them, even if we haven't seen them before.
Right. It used to be security team decides on the policy, security expert decides on the rules, and then the data plane implements it. And now it's security team decides the policy, AI implements whatever it needs to do to express those into the underlying data plane. I think that's a great example. Now, that's also an example of the kind of innovative thinking that your team is driving at Cyera. One thing that I'm pretty excited about is the Cyera Research Labs initiative that you've kicked off, and there's an AI security readiness report coming as well. What can you share with us of what's coming?
Yeah, so I think we're super excited about the Cyera AI Research Lab, and I think the opportunity there is really to help enterprises, not just with software, but to help them with knowledge, and to be able to educate, to propagate knowledge and understanding, both of specific risks that exist out there in the wild, customers are suffering from, but also from trends, changes in thought process, and changes in the way we need to organize our security efforts in order to be able to live up to the challenges that are arising every day. I think when you look at the security industry in general, it's such a dynamic business, right? You have changing IT landscape, biggest change today being AI. You have changing threat vectors, right? Like the way the attackers are going after you. And you have the changing regulatory landscape, changing compliance landscape. There's so many things that these organizations have to keep up with. So we're very excited to play our part in making sure that they have the best information available, the best context to really understand the challenges that are heading their way or potentially already at their doorstep, and also to help them solve that with our platform.
This is exciting, and it definitely is part of giving back in a way to help ensure that the community that we're building with the security experts that are betting on Cyera, they in turn get back sort of this knowledge about what's happening in the universe. So I'm really looking forward to this initiative.
That's one of the things that I love about the security industry personally, is that it's a community. Yeah. And we work with customers that compete with each other in the market.
Yeah.
Right? But when it comes to security, they collaborate and they partner and they help each other. And I think that for us as a provider in this space, it's such a great mission to be able to support the enterprises in this journey, to be able to unlock innovation for humanity, for society. It's amazing that we all can leverage, AI in our pocket, whether through ChatGPT or what our favorite engine. But in order for these enterprises to be there, there's so much work that needs to be done in order to get to a place where we can trust that our financial institution, our healthcare institutions, our educational institutions are leveraging AI and doing it in the right ways and getting the right outcomes from it. And I think that the adoption curve for humanity and for the enterprise is much longer than what we're experiencing personally as consumers in our pockets. And our ability to help speed that along, help accelerate that, help unlock that in a responsible way is something that we're super, super excited about. And I think it has true meaning for society and for the humankind.
It's very clear, speaking with you, how big your ambition for the platform is. Now, this is always hard for founders, right? We want to build a big platform, but you got to start with a discrete product you can sell, the first use case and the second use case. As you're on that journey, the thing that stands out to me is how you have combined building it inside with also identifying great talent outside the company and acquiring. What led you down that path? It's not an easy muscle to build for companies to identify, convince other companies and acquire them successfully. You've done all three. You've identified, you've been able to convince amazing founders to join the Cyera mission, and you have gotten them to incredible growth inside the business faster than anything I've seen in my career. How?
So we've done 3 acquisitions this past year, and one together with you in a sense.
Indeed.
And I think those acquisitions have had tremendous impact on our business and on our platform, each of them in their own way. I think the first thing that we've realized, and it's been kind of a guiding light in this, is first of all to focus on the cultural fit.
Yeah.
Cyera is today less than 1,000 employees. It's still an intimate company. There's a very strong personal connection between the employees. There's a very strong culture that, you mentioned earlier, Cyera Kind. And people can be brilliant. They can have amazing technology. But if the cultural fit isn't there at this stage of our growth, I think it's not an option for us. Right? Like, it's just not an option. I joke that an acquisition is a bit like getting married. Right? Like, the acquisition itself, that's the marriage, that's the ceremony. But then you have to spend a few years together. And you should want to spend those years together, and you should want to work with each other. You should want to put a lot of responsibility and trust in those people to do things that you can't. And if you have that, it's a magical thing, and it's special. Right? Like, we made 3 acquisitions this year because that's what we found. If we could do 10, if we could have done 10, we would have done 10 happily.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy to find a partner that, you click with at that level. Obviously, if the technology and product align as well, that is incredible. And, we've had that with Trail, where their technology, their work in the DLP, data in motion space, has truly opened up Cyera to entire whole new markets, has strengthened the position of our core DSPM data at rest products in the market, and has accelerated the company at a strategic level that is almost, beyond imagination. But the first and most important thing is you really got to love those people. You really got to want to work with them, to spend time with them, to trust them, and to feel that they're able to take on this mission better than you are.
I love this focus on culture. It's so clear. Every time I speak with you, Yotam, it's so clear how you bring your whole self to work. Like, it's not the work Yotam and then the play Yotam. It's one person. You mentioned Cyera Kind. What is that? What is that way of operating that is so near and dear to you?
Yeah. So when I look at our people, and Cyera Kind wasn't intentional. We didn't start with Cyera Kind and get to the company, but at some point in the journey, when there were quite a few people already, we tried to look around and understand, who we are, right? Like, who are the people that do well in this company? Why do they do well? What sets them apart from others? What are the values that matter to us? And we saw a few things that really, really matter to us. But I think the most fundamental thing is that we're looking for people that are, on the one hand, very, very smart, talented, capable, but on the other hand, have a sense of humility, kindness, that is never overshadowed by their capability. We grew up in ecosystems that were very, let's call it, professional, at the cutting edge of the professional scale. Right? Like, very strong technologists, very strong cyber experts. Not all of them were nice. And, at some point in life, you realize that the prize is not at the end of the road. The prize is today. The prize is waking up today, in the morning, Tuesday, and going to work and working with the people around you. And if you're not surrounded with people you love working with, what's the point? Right? Money, success, the point is to enjoy the journey, to enjoy every day of the journey. And when you're surrounded with people that are aligned to that, and, they want to work hard, they want to give it everything they've got, they want to make this company everything that it can be, but at the same time, they remember that the prize is today. It's to be together, to do it together, to get to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
That makes the biggest difference in the world. And I think that is fundamentally the Cyera kind we're looking for. People who are super motivated and driven, but that drive doesn't make them forget to be in the moment, to be present, to look at their colleagues and friends in the eyes and be good to the people around them in everything they do, while being challenging and driven and pushing the company to new boundaries.
Yeah. I'm going to tease out an example of this with you. Here, recently you opened a wonderful New York office here, and you had a very special interior designer. Tell us a bit more.
So my mom has been designing our offices from the very first office, which
Amazing.
was a 20-person office in Tel Aviv, to our New York headquarters now. Offices in Tel Aviv today that host about 400 employees. Our next offices in Tel Aviv that are going to host several hundred more. For me, it's an extremely special privilege to have her do that. She never has time to speak to me because she's busy on the project.
Can be a mixed bag.
But I also think that, the mission that she brings forth is one where the ecosystem that people work in should also reflect something, right? And, honestly, one of the things I do not appreciate about corporate America is that I get to visit many offices that are so dreary,
you gotta have personality.
Uninspiring.
Yeah.
And there's no reason. Amazing companies that have amazing talent, that are working on incredible challenges. I think a space should reflect the energy of the people in it and should reflect the creation that is happening in it.
Yeah.
And we really invest in our offices and our spaces to be a place that inspires innovation, inspires creativity, opens up the boundaries and the limits on what a human being is and what we all are in our creation.
Well, she's obviously a very special person. I can't wait to meet her. The other reason why I love that you shared that is because it's leading by example. You're bringing your whole self to work. And then the next layer and the next layer and the next layer, and the entire company then feels that they can use that. But I want to talk about that first layer. Yotam, I can't tell you how impressed I am by the quality of leadership hires you've brought in. Now, you're technical. This is your first startup. This is your first corporate role. And yet you've built an incredible leadership team and an incredible board. But talk to us, what do you look for in those leadership hires when you bring in somebody that's so critical in leadership roles, running critical functions?
Obviously, there's the core competency, right? The person has the right experience, the right pedigree for the role. But that is almost table stakes, right? You wouldn't be talking to the person if they didn't have that competency and experience and proven track record. I think the things that really stick out to me are first and foremost, how a person views themselves. All of us operate in the world with different energy and different intention and different perspective. And for me, fully well understanding what works at Cyera, what works with our team, I think that the people that succeed and do well in our company are people that have a relatively, let's call it a strong introspective capability. They see themselves. They don't take themselves too seriously. They don't think that, because they've accomplished things in life or because they've succeeded, they have it all figured out. They're learners, they're laughers, and about themselves included. I always tell the employees in the onboarding call that we take the business very seriously, but not ourselves. And I think sometimes, because of the nature of the business, cybersecurity, working with big enterprises, people become locked up, right? They become these stoic, kind of cold figures. I think we're much warmer, maybe too warm sometimes. I think a lot of hugging in the office, but I think people who view themselves and are able to always ask, how can I be better? How can I be a better partner to my peers? How can I be a better employee to my boss? How can I be a better manager to my people? And they're constantly looking for that path improve and to make an impact. I think that another really important characteristic in my mind for the executives at Cyera today is focus. The ability to differentiate very clearly between what is really important and everything else. A company that is moving so fast has many challenges. Wherever you put your eyes, you see something that can be improved. Right? Everything can be improved. Right. But the reality is that you cannot make a significant impact on everything. You need to choose where you're applying yourself as an executive, where you're making a change, making an impact, and you need to make that impact very meaningful. Right? It has to be something that changes something for the company. And I think that ability to focus and to forgive yourself the things you're not doing and not changing, but also to find a way to solve very challenging problems that have no cookbook for solving them and reposition the company in other aspects. That is another super important characteristic to me. Maybe the last test, which again goes a bit to the Cyera Kind, I like spending time with this person. Right? Yeah. Am I looking forward to the interview after you've done an interview with somebody? Are you looking forward to seeing him again, to seeing them again, to talking to them again, to spending time together? Are you excited that they're going to join the company? And a lot of times these are emotional things that I'm talking about, right? Like it's not, oh, do they have this experience or that experience? Have they managed at scale? Have they been at a hyper growth company? Have they scaled from to $1 billion ARR? Like all of these things are great, but at the end of the day, you gotta trust your gut. Is this person going to be somebody that I love working with, that others would love working with, and is going to bring good into the company every day and push us forward?
Yeah. Requires an investment of time. The things you're talking about, like you said, you can't read those on a resume. You have to put in the time as a leader to really evaluate them in the right way and test for cultural fit.
Hours and hours in person with people, because at the end of the day, that's what makes the difference. Choosing the right people and making those hires well, and making sure that you're building a team that pushes each other up, continues to challenge each other, and push the boundaries on what the company was yesterday. That's the work.
I love that. One last question before we go into rapid fire. What you have achieved in 4 years at Cyera is incredible. The scale is rare. What is the hardest piece out of, look, it's all hard, but what is the hardest? Is it building product that can scale like that? Building the go-to-market engine and hiring sales and marketing and the growth engine that can scale like that? Or just finding talent and hiring the right people? Which is the hardest challenge out of the three when you grow at that incredible pace?
I think the hardest part is determination. In our journey, nothing is perfect. Sometimes I think when you look at success from the outside, it seems flawless. Right? Like it seems like everything is working great. But as anyone who's done, I think, built something or been a part of building something, has experienced from the inside, maybe the opposite is true. Nothing is great, right? And there is one of the biggest challenges of moving so quickly is dealing with the fact that things aren't great, because it's very easy especially for people with maybe an engineering tendency. You want everything to be clean. You want everything to be the best. You want everything to be all the way. You want everything to be fully thought out. You want everything to have a good process. You want it to be well managed. But it isn't. When you're moving really fast, a lot of things aren't. And the ability to keep that determination to continue to move fast and not crawl up into your shell in a sense and focus on all the risks and all the challenges and all the competitors and all the things that could go wrong, and just go for it. Go for that opportunity that the market is giving you. Go for that opportunity that is happening for you, and make it, manifest it into reality in a sense, despite the fact that things aren't perfect. There's many challenges. Many things need to improve. Almost everything needs to improve. And I think that keeping that determination to grow quickly, and that energy and that speed is in my mind the biggest challenge. All of the other things, they're tactical challenges that need to be overcome.
Yeah.
Hiring, product development, go-to-market, customer success, G&A, operations. All of these things, they're definitely challenging. But I think the biggest challenge is just to keep your eyes on the ball and drive the company to where it needs to be, and rally in the beginning 50 people, then 300 people, then 600 people, then 1,000 people. Rally everybody to that cause and make sure that all of these people are rowing in the same direction, at the same pace, at the same speed. That's the challenge in my mind.
Yeah, well said. This is running a marathon at a sprinter's pace. And so keeping up that energy, keeping that determination is supremely important. All right, we're getting to my favorite part, which is a set of rapid fire questions we ask all amazing CEOs. You don't need to think too much. You can just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. Let's start from the top. Biggest risk you ever took at Cyera?
The trail acquisition was a huge risk. We betted a significant portion of the company and brought in a significant team in terms of headcount. We believed that it would be amazing. It's outdoing our expectations, but it was a huge risk, and also the first time we acquired the company, we didn't know how to incorporate them. We didn't know how to get that deal done. We didn't know a lot of things. And I think that was a risky and very successful decision.
Amazing. One decision you do differently if you could just rewind the clock?
Wow. I think we wasted time in the early days, not fully well understanding what the next chapters would look like. So when you're a young founder with a small company and almost no go-to-market traction, you're just trying to do things. And what ends up happening is that you just waste a ton of time. You spend a ton of time on things that don't matter at all, and you don't spend enough time on the things that do matter. And you turn things that are not even a question into almost like meaningful dilemmas. That's the worst thing, right? There's somebody super talented you meet, and you're thinking, should I hire them? Shouldn't I hire them? But I don't need this role. I don't need it right now. Maybe I need it in a few months. And as you mature in this journey, the answer becomes very, very, very clear. But I think, some of the feelings like I would have done it differently. I think we could have gotten a heck of a lot more accomplished in the first 2 years with the experience, knowledge, and perspective we have today. Moved at even a much faster pace.
I thought you were already moving fast. This is great. I like that you're setting the bar even higher. Next, your proudest moment as a CEO.
I think that the moments that fill me with pride are seeing how the employees feel about the company. Getting feedback from people that, I personally hired 4 years ago, that I know are extremely talented and have all the options in the world, could go and found companies themselves, could work for any company they choose, and chose Cyera 4 years ago when, it was a very, very, very small company, not decorated, with no accomplishments to show at the time. To get the feedback from them about how happy they are about that decision, not just because of the success of the company, but because of their personal experience, how much they love working as part of the company, leading as part of the company. Those are moments that overwhelm me so much that I almost can't let myself feel them, because I'll just, I'll just melt from it.
Yeah.
But
That's
that
awesome.
that fills me.
That's awesome. I know you're nonstop traveling, but if you do have the time, is there a book or a podcast or a resource you would recommend to other founders?
Yes, absolutely. I think, for me, Frank Slootman's book, Amp It Up, was a transformational read. I read it at the right time for us. And when I did that, I couldn't imagine that a year or two later, I'd get the opportunity to have Frank join our board of directors and to work with him directly. But his book, Amp It Up, put into words for me, into clear understandable, communicatable words, something that we were doing already, but being able to give it a body in a sense, to make it into a thing, really helped us propagate it across the company and take it to the next level.
I saw hints of that when you were talking about your leadership hires and saying, look, it's really important for them to identify what's the most important thing. It's keep the main thing the main thing. I saw reflections of that ethos in how you're running the company. It's incredible that you've been able to attract not just great leaders, but, members of the board like Frank to the company. I think it speaks to the mission of the company and the team and the ambition that you have.
I think just today, before coming here, I had a one-on-one with a CEO who just retired of a public company. And, after 30 minutes of the conversation, he's like, Yotam, you reached out. What did you want? And I had to tell him that nothing in specific, but for me as a young guy, as a first-time founder, as a first-time CEO, building this company, I try to turn my position into an advantage. Right? Like I don't view it as a handicap. I view it in many regards as an advantage in the market, but that I also want to get the full value of the experience that people have gathered and learned throughout decades of operations and company building in the market. And I think that that's not only true for me, but it's true for the entire team. Right? I think every person who wants to continue to grow has to find the right fertilizers around them. And in many regards, those are people who can challenge you, can give you a different perspective, can give you a different angle about what you're doing that you might have not thought. And a lot of times that comes from experience. So we're huge proponents of mentorship and guidance. We look for it with many people, and I think it's also important that it's a living, breathing thing.
So it's a learning mindset inside the entire
people.
organization.
People have taught me so much at one chapter of the journey, and then other people come in and teach you so much. And if you keep looking for that and you keep coming into those conversations with a mentality where I can learn from anybody. I can learn from our BDRs. I can learn from anybody in the company, anybody in the market. It can teach you about your business and about building a business. And I think that is really, I try to have every week to have at least a few crystallized learnings where I just feel like I took something from a conversation with someone. Like, even if I got just that one thing, that was worth the entire day to have that understanding.
Yeah, it's a compounding advantage, built on itself. Last question for the day. If you weren't building Cyera right now, what space would you be tackling?
I think if I weren't building Cyera, I would probably be doing something in the social, political landscape in Israel.
Yeah.
Israel is undergoing very challenging years in many, many aspects. And that's something that is super, super important to me to affect the lives of the people of Israel and to affect that country's trajectory in the world.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't building Cyera, I'd probably not be building anything else in technology, but be operating in a social ecosystem.
I can, for anyone who interacts with you, Yotam, you can feel the warmth. You can feel the empathy. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that. In fact, of course, I want you to continue to build Cyera forever and ever and ever. But yes, if you were to decide to do something at some point, that would just make a ton of sense. And we'd be excited to follow your career in that space too. Yotam, you have an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that with us today. I know you're just between flights, and so we deeply appreciate the investment of time. We are excited to be on this journey with you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for your time. And thank you for sharing your perspectives.
Thank you, Guru.